And hello everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian, and thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. This, like I mentioned, is the Movie Pit Podcast, where we talk about all the latest noteworthy big movie news items that have come out throughout the week. We also talk about the movie trailers that came out this week, and we also talk about the movies that are out in theaters for all your viewing pleasures. So we have quite a week this week to get to, so I don't want to waste too much time. So let's just get right to it, shall we? We do, once again, have some noteworthy news items that came out after the podcast went up last week, considering that I did record it a little earlier than I usually do. And just as I was uploading the podcast last week, this trailer dropped, which I would have loved to talk about last week when it was brand new, but if you haven't seen it yet, then hey, it is brand new for you guys. So the first trailer, and there was a teaser released before, so this is the first trailer really for the new Purge movie coming out this year called The First Purge. Was released, and obviously, as you can tell from the title, it's The First Purge. They're going back. It's a prequel. It's a prequel going back to the very first Purge in the history of this world that we've come to know. The franchise creator, James DeMonaco, wrote the film. He has directed the past 3 movies. He will not direct this one. He will only serve as a writer. And as opposed to all the other Purge movies, this one has a predominantly black cast, which will probably fit very well with all the political themes. The franchise has touched upon political themes here and there. I mean, the last one was called Election Year, for crying out loud, but there have been political themes and touches throughout the whole franchise, and this one looks like it's going to touch on it once again, predominantly again with the predominant black cast. There is something in the trailer that I kind of wish they didn't give away, but I'm not going to spoil it in case you don't want to hear about it or have not seen the trailer. But there was something I wish they didn't give away in the trailer itself, but it's kind of interesting. These movies are always kind of filled with I don't want to say up and coming actors. They've been around, they just haven't done a lot of big projects. The exception here is Marissa Tomei. She's in the movie, and it looks like she's the one that actually proposes the Purge idea, and then everyone kind of seems to agree. So that's kind of interesting to see how that plays out. I've always been a fan of the Purge movies. I think the last one was it was okay. It wasn't as good because it was coming off the Purge Anarchy, which I think is the best one of the series. So hopefully this one definitely has some big shoes to fill, and hopefully it works out pretty good in its favor. Again, it's a prequel, so obviously there's a lot of things that will be worked out and stuff like that, and we'll get to see things that we probably didn't get to see, and we won't see. Maybe some nice little callbacks to the future. So we'll see how that works out. The Purge, the first Purge, I should say, comes out on July 4th, very appropriately. So there you go. All right. So one of the other big movie news items, noteworthy news items that came out last week. There was another trailer that dropped during the weekend. We'll get to that in a second. But we'll get to this movie news item first. The new Terminator movie has been pushed back. So the next Terminator movie was supposed to come out next year in July, and it will still come out next year. However, it has been pushed back to November. More specifically, November 22nd of next year. The move apparently has nothing to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who will be returning, coming out of his open heart surgery, because he did have open heart surgery, and of course, in classic Arnold fashion, apparently the first words he said after the surgery when he woke up was, "I'm back," which is a very Arnold thing to do. But the move has apparently nothing to do with that. This is something apparently the studio, Paramount being the studio, has been planning for a while. It just so happened to be timed right around Arnold coming out of open heart surgery. We don't know too much about the plot of the movie other than it will be a direct sequel to Terminator 2, basically avoiding all the other sequels that have come out. In addition to Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back, Linda Hamilton will finally be coming back to the franchise, Of course, returning as her famous character Sarah Connor. The series creator James Cameron will also be returning to produce the film, making it the first time these three have worked together since Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Mackenzie Davis from AMC's *Halt and Catch Fire*, she was also in Blade Runner 2049, has recently joined the film in an unknown role, but the idea is to bring in some unknown up-and-coming names to the potential franchise. That was true this week. A little bit of an update. We're getting a little bit ahead of myself, but Diego Boneta, he was in the Fox series Scream Queens. He was also in Rock of Ages. He has joined the cast in an unknown role, but he will be playing a human, according to the reports. So getting a little again, jumping ahead of myself a little bit there, but director Tim Miller will be directing the movie, obviously. He directed Deadpool, and at the moment, the only other movies coming out that weekend of November 22nd is an untitled Fox Marvel movie, and that's pretty much it for that weekend. But November 2019 is looking pretty heavy. It's going to be a busy November for us, because we have the new Terminator movie, we have Bond 25 coming out, we have Frozen 2 coming out, and we have Wonder Woman 2 also coming out in November. So November next year is looking pretty stacked. So save up your pennies, boys and girls, for that next year. Alright, so let's move on to the other big noteworthy news item. It's another trailer. It dropped over the weekend. It was the new trailer for Solo, a Star Wars story.
You're after something. Is it revenge? Money? Or is it something else? You look good. A little rough around the edges, but good.
Heard about a job. Big shot gangster putting together crew.
I'm a driver, and I'm a flyer. I waited a long time for a shot like this. What do you think? Well, what do you know?
You got a line on a ship?
Yeah, I know a guy. He's the best smuggler around.
I heard a story about you. I was wondering if it's true.
Everything you've heard about me is true.
L3!
Let go of the mean man's face.
Who are these guys? If you come with us, you're in this life for good.
You might wanna buckle up, baby.
Let me give you some advice. Assume everyone will betray you, and you will never be disappointed.
I got a really good feeling about this. Since when do you know how to fly? 190 years old? You look great. Push it!
Lucasfilm released a new trailer for their upcoming spin-off and origin film of everyone's favorite smuggler, Han Solo. The movie, of course, will be led by Alden Ehrenreich. Again, I've heard his name being pronounced another way, but I first heard it pronounced as Ehrenreich, so I'm just going to say Ehrenreich. He will be playing the young Han Solo on his early adventures, and when he first crossed paths with Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian, of course played by Donald Glover in the movie, and when the Millennium Falcon first came into his possession. So honestly, we've talked about Solo on the podcast before, because we've brought it up many times. Of course, the whole Phil Lord, Chris Miller thing, which I don't think anyone needs to be reminded of how all that went down. But I wasn't really looking forward to Solo. To be honest, the only thing that I was looking forward to Solo was what Phil Lord and Chris Miller were going to do, and obviously we're not going to be able to see that. But this trailer in particular has got me a little more interested in the movie. We got to see a lot more new footage. Obviously, the only real footage we've seen was from the Super Bowl spot and the extended Super Bowl spot. But this doesn't look too bad. We're introduced to Paul Bettany's villain character. He was actually a recast because of all the reshoots they were doing. Michael K. Williams, who was originally the villain of the movie, couldn't come back during the reshoots, so they replaced him with Paul Bettany, and they also made him an actual human character because apparently Michael K. Williams was playing a CGI character, and that is no longer the case. And it also kind of looks like a heist movie. I don't think we really didn't know anything about the movie other than it's an origin movie. It's Han Solo on his first adventure with the Millennium Falcon, but we didn't really know anything about the movie's plot, and it looks like there's a heist going on. I think it's the android with Donald Glover that says, "I'm so glad we took this job" at one point, and it looks like they're stealing something. So it looks like it could be a heist movie, which again wouldn't be so bad. I mean, Han Solo is a smuggler after all, so we'll have to obviously wait to see a little bit more and what we're gonna find out about that. But and again, it's not clear what they're stealing in the movie either, so there is that. But I don't know, it doesn't look as bad as I thought. I was kind of okay with the teaser that was released. I thought, okay, it looks different than what I thought, and I wasn't totally on board. I'm not completely on board just yet, but this trailer at least has me a little bit more excited, or got me a little excited, I should say, to go watch the movie. The movie co-stars Emilia Clarke, of course, Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. We see Woody Harrelson in there. He plays Han Solo's mentor. Phoebe Waller-Bridge did the motion capture. Can't speak now. Bad Science podcast just started. But she did the motion capture and the voice for the android that's in the movie. And Thaddeus Newton from, of course, Westworld is in there as well. We see her in the trailer. Solo, a Star Wars story, opens on May 25th. So just next month, guys. Just gotta wait. Just gotta wait. All right, so that's it. Those were all the noteworthy news items that came out after the podcast went up last week. Let's move forward with the news items that came out this week. And of course, as always, here on the Movie Pit Podcast, we always start off with trailer talk.
Coming soon to theaters.
So we started the trailer talk a little bit early, obviously, with the Purge and the Han Solo movie, but we're going to be talking about the trailers that came out this week, and we have two that we're going to highlight here on the podcast. The first one is The Meg, aka the Jason Statham versus the Giant Shark movie, because that's what it is. That's what it's going to be known as. So Warner Brothers released the first trailer for the action thriller The Meg. Again, aka Jason Statham versus the Giant Shark movie. It is directed by John Turteltaub, who has directed the National Treasure movies, and it stars Jason Statham as a Navy captain and rescue diver, hired to face down a prehistoric shark and save a team of scientists trapped at the bottom of the sea. I really didn't know what to expect from this, because you hear giant shark and and you're like, okay, well, how giant is a shark really going to be? And holy hell, the size of the shark that we see in the trailer is kind of terrifying. The first shot of the trailer is this: we see this little girl in this weird kind of bottom of the sea like housing. I don't know what's going on there, but she's walking, and then she drops like a ball or something, and behind her is this massive glass, its window, and she kind of looks out, and you see the shark head come toward her, and you're like, oh well, that's gonna end badly, and then it bites down the glass. It doesn't break it, but you can see just the size of it. It's the size of the marks from its teeth it leaves on the window, and you're like, oh wow, that's gonna be messed up. But yeah, I mean, this thing is massive. They really try to make it seem like this thing is a massive creature, and Jason Statham, and probably one of the most ridiculous lines you'll hear in a trailer, and probably this year, he says it's a megalodon, and a megalodon is an actual type of shark. People will probably assume that this is just Hollywood running out of ideas, and we're like, oh, we need a giant shark movie, and we'll give it this ridiculous name of a megalodon. No, a megalodon is a real scientific term for a giant shark. And also, if you think that Hollywood's running out of ideas, they're not, because The Meg is actually based off a book. That's right, it's based off of a series of books, mind you. There is a series of books of The Meg. So before you go all, complaining on Twitter and wherever, it's based off a book, several books, and there's actually another book on the way. So this is yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. This is gonna be a guilty. This is a guilty pleasure. It's gonna be a movie we're all gonna go watch. You're gonna sit down in the theater. You're gonna have fun with it. You're gonna make fun of it, and you know what? You're probably gonna have a fun time. And I know I am. It's Jason Statham. I'll go watch anything Jason Statham's in. And if he has to punch or kick a giant shark in the face, we're all going to cheer when we see it in the theater. So I don't know why you're getting all uppity and getting all your panties in a bunch. So relax. It's a summer movie. So settle down. I'm looking forward to this. I don't know what it is. The trailer, they play, what was the song? I already forgot the song they used in it. But the trailer, like the song they play in the trailer, like halfway through, was like, of course you would play that song. Movie co-stars Ruby Rose Rainn Wilson is in the movie. Looks like he's playing the comic relief. Lee Bingbing's in there. Cliff Curtis, Jessica McNamee, and Mazi Oka is also in the film. And there's someone else. I left someone out, and I can't remember his name at the moment. But there's also someone else in there who's pretty big as well. But The Meg opens on August 10th. We will definitely be talking more about The Meg when the time gets closer to the release date. Say what you want. I'm kind of excited to go watch this movie. So, yeah. Alright, so let's move on to the second highlighted trailer we're going to talk about here. And that is the new trailer for Ocean's 8. It is the spin-off of the Steven Soderbergh Ocean's series. Of course, he directed Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. Ocean's 8 stars Sandra Bullock as Debbie Ocean, the sister of George Clooney's Danny Ocean, who is fresh out of prison and sets her eyes on the biggest heist of her life. She assembles her team and plans on stealing $150 million worth of diamonds. The catch? The diamonds are actually around the neck of a world-famous actress, played by Anne Hathaway in the movie, at the Met Gala. The movie is directed by Gary Ross, who directed Pleasantville and the first Hunger Games movie. He also directed Seabiscuit, I believe. And the hope is, of course, to start a new franchise with eventual cameos by some of the cast members of the Soderbergh Ocean's movies, so there is that. The spinoff looks pretty cool, and I was actually really behind the idea of them doing a spinoff, an all-female spinoff of the Ocean's movies. I know there's a lot of people that were against that idea because it came out the idea came out, or the report came out around the time when I think Ghostbusters came out, the all-female Ghostbusters movie. And it was around that time where, everyone was kind of getting up, a lot of guys who were, let's admit it, were afraid of getting, of women taking all these roles. But it came out around the time where there was ideas of rebooting all these movies with female-centric leads, or just kind of reworking old ideas and with all female leads. And the Ocean's movies, of the Steven Soderbergh Ocean's movies, I'm a huge fan of. I love Ocean's 11. Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13 was great as well. But the idea of them doing an all-female Ocean's movie was always awesome, because I knew if they ever did it, they would get a great cast behind it, and that is what they did with this, and I'm all for it. I think the cast is great. The trailers have been pretty good, and I don't know. I mean, it could be terrible, but so far everything looks great. So I'm all for it. The impressive cast, besides Sandra Bullock and Anne Hathaway, includes Cate Blanchett, Sarah Paulson, Mindy Kaling, Rihanna, Helena Bonham Carter, Awkwafina, Richard Armitage, and James Corden. Ocean's 8 opens on June 8th. So we'll definitely be talking more about this when we get closer to the release date. And finally, I've been waiting for this one. There is a new trailer for The Incredibles 2.
Did you wash your hands? With soap? Did you dry them?
What? Is this all vegetables? Who ordered all vegetables?
I did. So, are we going to talk about it?
What?
The elephant in the room.
What elephant?
Mom's new job.
It's time to make some wrong things right. Help me bring supers back into the sunlight. We need to change people's perceptions about superheroes, and Elastigirl is our best play.
Better than me?
Whoa! I like Mom's new job! Bye, sweetie.
I'll watch the kids, no problem.
That's not the way you're supposed to do it, Dad. They want us to do it this
I don't
way.
know that way. Why would they change math? Math is math.
Okay,
Math
Dad.
is math. Hello?
Hey, honey. How are the kids?
Everything's great.
Is she having adolescence? And Jack?
He's in excellent health.
What the?
Num num cooking.
Oh, my God.
Cooking.
Wow, gay. That is freaky.
You know it's crazy, right? To help my family, I gotta leave it. To fix the law, I gotta break it.
You've got to, so our kids can have that choice.
Thank you, young man.
Combustion imminent? What does that mean? Ah!
It means fire, Robert.
The screenslaver interrupts this program for an important announcement.
Suit up. It might get weird.
I'll be there ASAP.
Where you going ASAP? You better be back ASAP.
The sequel will find Elastigirl, of course, the mother of the Incredibles family, becoming the go-to superhero, and leaves Bob, aka Mr. Incredible, becoming the stay-at-home dad, taking care of the kids, and baby Jack, who, of course, as from the teasers and the previous little small trailer we got, or the Olympics sneak peek, as it was called, discovering his powers. Of course, a new threat will arise in the form of the Screenslaver, and of course we can only imagine that the Incredibles will come back together to stop this new threat. This looks pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. Granted, we've waited a long time for the sequel to The Incredibles, and hopefully the wait is worth it, because if it isn't, I think we'll all be very, very disappointed. But Pixar has been working on this for a long time now, and hopefully they got it right. The parent reversal is pretty neat. Obviously, we see Mr. Incredible still kind of stuck in the past when he's helping his son with math, and he's like, "Why would they change math?" And I thought that's kind of cool. But we do see Baby Jack, and of course we get to see Samuel L. Jackson, his character Frozone, for whatever reason I can't remember his real name, but him coming back and having the little bit with his wife, at the end of the teaser, that was a nice little callback there. I think it's pretty cool. There have been some plot details coming out since then that maybe superheroes are not welcomed anymore, and we kind of get that a little bit in the trailer. It looks like she will. The idea that superheroes need to come back, and that the character voiced by Bob Odenkirk in the movie says that she being Elastigirl is the way to get superheroes back in the limelight and back in favor of everyone. So it looks like superheroes in the world now, the Incredibles, are not welcomed as much, which is a nice little spin on the potential superhero fatigue in real life. But I think it looks pretty cool. Hopefully the wait is worth the wait. The wait is worth it, because I think there'll be a lot of people who are disappointed if this movie doesn't turn out good. But I don't think that will be the case, because Pixar's pretty good, and they got a good story here with and family union and everything with The Incredibles. So the cast will include the returning Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, Sarah Vowell, Huck Minor, Samuel L. Jackson, Brad Bird, and the new cast will include Bob Odenkirk, like I just mentioned, Catherine Keener, Jonathan Banks, Sophia Bush, and Isabella Rossellini. The Incredibles 2, or Incredibles 2. It's not called The Incredibles 2. It's called Incredibles 2. So Incredibles 2 will open on June 15th. Can't wait for it. It's been too long. So some other trailers that came out this week that you will find in the description/show notes area down below is the first trailer for Mary Shelley, which actually stars Elle Fanning, about the writer Mary Shelley. So it seemed the trailer was kind of interesting. And as I look back, I'm like, I actually don't know anything about Mary Shelley's life. So if you want to go check that out, you can. There's also another trailer for a coming-of-age movie with Timothée Chalamet, who, of course, from Lady Bird and Calling by Her Name. The movie is Hot Summer Nights. Maika Monroe is also in the movie. She was in It Follows, if you remember that movie. She's in this movie as well. And apparently this movie was shot before Chalamet did Call Me by Your Name and Lady Bird. And this movie's apparently been sitting on the shelf for a little bit, so we'll see how that turns out. Both these movies will come out later this year, so you can look for. I think Hot Summer Nights actually comes out during the summer, and I think Mary Shelley comes out around September or October, something like that. Both of them are limited releases, but we'll talk about them when they come out in theaters, of course. But yeah, if you want to go check those out, all the links to the trailers, these two, Ocean's 8, The Meg, Solo, and The Purge, all those trailers will be linked down below in the description/show notes area, as always. So that's it. Let's move on to this week's movie news items. Alright, so this week's movie news items. There is one movie news item that I left out of the podcast for just because I don't have too much to say about it. Melissa McCarthy and her husband Ben Falcone are re-teaming up for an action comedy called Super Intelligence. If you want to read more about that, you can go over to the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/moviepit. That's facebook.com/moviepit. Of course, there's a clickable link down below in the description/show notes area, and you guys can go check that out. Some other news items you can catch over on the Facebook page is the Aquaman. I went through some reshoots recently, and they added an important comic book character, so you can go check that out. And Steven Soderbergh's next films have been lined up. Steven Soderbergh, of course, had Unsane come out recently. It's a very little fanfare, and I saw it, and it was okay. But yeah, he's lined up his next two films, so you can go read about that. And also, there was an update to Brett Ratner. I would have probably talked about that, but then I realized Brett Ratner's a scumbag, and I'm not going to talk about him on the podcast. But there was an update to the story of him not re-signing, or Warner Brothers not re-signing his deal, or not renewing his deal with his production company, Rat Pack Dunes. They have been a part of Warner Brothers for a long time, and they've helped them get films out there. They've helped them produce films and budget films since 2013. So they've been a part of them for a long time. But obviously, with all the sexual misconduct acts and harassment allegations against him, and a bunch of people coming out, against him as well, Warner Brothers was like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. So hit the brakes. But if you want to read that story, I will link it down below in the description/show notes area. I am currently writing it up for the Facebook page, but I think I'm just starting to write it, and I have some other stuff to do, so I might get distracted in the sideline with that. So if you want to go read that story right away, you can. It'll be probably by the time this podcast goes up, it will be up on the Facebook page as well. But if it isn't, there you go. But let's move on to this week's movie news items very quickly. This first news item I think is kind of interesting and kind of cool, but I don't know if there is a massive following for it. Charlize Theron says that Atomic Blonde 2 is currently being worked on. She was speaking at the San Francisco Film Festival, where she was getting a career award over there. And while speaking there, Atomic Blonde came up, and Theron let it out that they're working on a sequel at the moment. That's as far as she went, but it should be kind of cool to see if that ends up happening or not. I liked most of Atomic Blonde. I think it was definitely a mixed bag of a lot of things, but I think if there's a sequel and she's back and the director's back, I'm all on board with that. So there is that. Toy Story 4 gets a release date. Pixar has announced the release date for Toy Story 4. The fourth film in the series was announced back in 2014. So it's been working for a while, with John Lasseter directing, and the script being written by Will McCormick and Rashonda Jones, who were going off the original story by the creators of the franchise, Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter, and Lee Urich. And at the time, a June 2017 release date was announced, so it would have came out last year. Obviously, that did not happen, but then it was pushed back to this year, 2018, back in October of 2015. So they've been pushing it back for a while, and then one more time it was moved back because Pixar was pushing up Incredibles 2. So I mean, we got a good little switch there. However, the biggest hit came last year in July, when Pixar head John Lasseter stepped down from his duties amid, of course, sexual harassment reports, which was, of course, a big thing last year. That led to McCormick and Jones leaving the script writing duties and the project being thrown a bit into a limbo. That was quickly fixed when Stephanie Falzam, who was an uncredited writer on Thor Ragnarok, and there was a very big history with that, of her being uncredited because of the Writers Guild of America rules and all that. But she stepped in to write the script, and Josh Cooley, who was already a co-director on the project with John Lasseter, was moved up to its main director. He was a writer on Inside Out, and then, obviously Pixar likes to keep everything in-house. And he brought in Jonas Rivera, who was a co-director on Coco, to help him co-direct the movie together. So everything all kind of worked out in the end. But yeah, we don't know too much about the movie itself. When it first came out, it was announced as a romantic comedy, and it wouldn't be a direct sequel to Toy Story 3. But of course, a lot of things have happened since then, so we don't know anything. But we are given a release date, and Toy Story 4 will open on June 21st next year. So we'll probably be hearing a lot of stuff soon from Toy Story 4, hopefully, because I'm a big fan of Toy Story. I've liked all of them, and it'll be nice to see Toy Story back in our lives on the big screen. Alright, so let's move on to the next movie news item. I left this one in here because he's enjoying a lot of success right now. John Krasinski has found his next film to potentially direct. John Krasinski is, of course, enjoying the success of A Quiet Place. If you have not seen A Quiet Place, I highly recommend you do, because it is damn good. And I did do a spoiler-free written review on my WordPress account. WordPress account is linked down below in the description/show notes area. If you want to go check that out, you can. But it looks like he has found his next project to potentially direct. Paramount, which distributed A Quiet Place, is in negotiations to pick up a script called Life on Mars. The project will also reunite Krasinski with his Platinum Dunes producers, who also helped out with the project, of course, if they get the script. The project will be an adaptation of a short story by Cecile Castellucci, I think that's how you pronounce her name, which was titled We Have Always Lived on Mars. And that centers on a woman who is among a handful of descendants of a Martian colony long abandoned by Earth following a cataclysm event. The woman one day finds out she can breathe the air on Mars, upending her world and that of her fellow colonists. Why did I say colonists? Why did I say that weird? Anyway, Krasinski bought the script up to Paramount, to Platinum Dunes, and they, of course, in turn bought it to Paramount, and they have been acting on getting the script over to them as quickly as possible, especially after the success of A Quiet Place, which made them a lot of money. So Krasinski at the moment will only produce the movie, and again, he will potentially direct the movie, but he will not star in the film itself. So he's sticking behind the camera, which is pretty cool. Krasinski at the moment only has the Amazon series Jack Ryan set to come out this summer, so he's probably going to be a very busy man soon if that happens. And and again, congratulations on John Krasinski. This is A Quiet Place is his third movie he's directed, and it's his first horror movie. And it's very, very good. So if you have not seen it, I highly recommend you do. And the less you know about the movie, the better. I try to keep my review on a very just need to know basis of everything, but I didn't give you everything that you needed to know, because there's some things that you should definitely not know before, walking into the theater. So yeah, there you go. All right, so let's move on with the next movie news item. Batgirl. That's right, Batgirl. Batgirl moves forward with a new writer. Warner Brothers and DC are truly moving forward with the Batgirl movie. The last we heard about the movie was about 2 months ago, when the original writer and director of the movie, Joss Whedon, the king of the nerds, left the project after a year due to, as he put it, not being able to nail down the character and not be able to come up with anything. Cut to this week, The Hollywood Reporter reported that up-and-coming writer Christina Hodson is set to write the script. Hudson will now bring the popular character of Barbara Gordon, the daughter of Gotham City Police Commissioner James Gordon, to the big screen. Like I mentioned, Christina Hodson is an upcoming screenwriter. She has made a name for herself as of late. She wrote a 2017 thriller called Unforgettable with Rosario Dawson and Katherine Heigl, which I find kind of ironic because I don't think anyone remembers that movie. She also wrote a horror thriller called Shut In with Naomi Watts, which again, not a lot of people remember. She also wrote the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee, which comes out later this year. And she wrote a remake for The Fugitive over at Warner Brothers. And she also, nice little connection here, she wrote the script for the Harley Quinn-centric Suicide Squad spin-off Birds of Prey. So she already has a nice little history with the studio, and probably a nice history with the character, because we can probably assume that maybe Batgirl was going to be in that movie. Obviously, everything is still in early development, but it was previously reported the studio wants Batgirl to be part of the studio's next wave of superhero movies, along with The Flash and Wonder Woman 2. And now with Hodson writing the script, the movie looks closer than it was before, and I think a lot of people are happy because there was a lot of hate for Joss Whedon being the writer of Batgirl, even though he gave us great female characters like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I can see why. But at the same time, I can see why people were upset. There were some things that came out with him and an ex of his, and a bunch of other stuff, which is obviously very fair. If that's all true, then yes, that people should be angry at Joss Whedon. But Joss Whedon is the king of the nerds, so there's always going to be just a little bit of bias. But if he did do something very shitty, I am not going to defend him. So relax on that. But a lot of people have been wanting, a lot of people have always had this idea that if there's a female character, especially a famous one like Batgirl or even Wonder Woman, when of course everyone wanted the director of Wonder Woman to be a woman instead of a man, and we got Patty Jenkins, and obviously that turned out very well. So people want that same treatment of Wonder Woman for Batgirl, because Batgirl is again a very also a very popular character. I don't know if she was as popular as Wonder Woman, but she is also a very big popular character. She's up there with fans and with myself as well, being a fan of the Bat family. But yeah, should be interesting to kind of see how this works out. And again, Christina Hodson is an upcoming name. We'll see how she handles Bumblebee, obviously her first kind of real big budget movie. So we'll see how that turns out. All right, so let's move on to the next movie news item. David Leitch is confirmed to direct the Fast and the Furious spin-off Hobbs and Shaw. So about 2 months ago, it was reported that David Leitch was a frontrunner to direct the Fast and the Furious spin-off, which focused on Dwayne Johnson's Hobbs and Jason Statham's Shaw. And David Leitch, by the way, directed John Wick, Atomic Blonde, and he is the director of the upcoming Deadpool 2. So yeah, I just kind of assumed that you guys would know who David Leitch is, and that was a mistake on my part. So now Leitch has been officially set as the director of the movie, and he will direct off the script by Fast and the Furious franchise writer Chris Morgan. He has been writing all the films since Tokyo Drift, so he's been part of the franchise for a while. So there's no plot details in the movie just yet, but when it was first reported, it was said that it would follow Hobbs and Shaw tracking down Cypher, the Charlize Theron character from The Fate of the Furious. However, that plot point has kind of died down a little bit since it was first reported. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how this movie plays out and what exactly they're doing together. It'll also be more interesting to see how they handle Hobbs, because last week we talked about how Dwayne Johnson said that there's a good chance of him not appearing in Fast and the Furious 9 because of his beef with Vin Diesel while they were filming The Fate of the Furious. So it should be interesting to kind of see how that movie plays out and how Hobbs' character plays out in the movie itself. Maybe this is their way of having Hobbs and Shaw kind of be their own thing. So we'll see how that works out. And as for David Leitch, again, directed John Wick, Atomic Blonde, is directing Deadpool 2. I think he's an awesome choice. David Leitch went from being a stuntman, turned into a director, so that gives him a real big edge on directing action scenes. And we've seen what he's put together in John Wick and Atomic Blonde, and we'll see what he puts together for Deadpool 2. So it should be kind of interesting to see how he plays in the playpen of the Fast and Furious world, and also how he'll work the dynamic between Johnson and Statham. So yeah, should be kind of interesting to see how that turns out. The Untitled movie currently has a release date of July 26, 2019. So there you go on that. Alright, so let's move forward with our big movie news item of the week, number 2. That's right, you heard me. I said number 2, because this went from being a small news item that I would have talked about at the beginning of the podcast to a big movie news item because of the update that happened later on this week. So, It Chapter 2 will start filming this year, and it is eyed 2 stars already. So the new adaptation of Stephen King's It was, of course, a massive success last year, breaking all kinds of records left and right, and getting rave reviews from critics and fans alike. I being one of those fans who really liked the new It. So it wasn't a surprise when the sequel was officially announced 2 weeks after the film came out in theaters, and since then, the project has been kind of semi-quiet. The first film screenwriter Gary Dauberman will come back to write the script. That was announced, I believe, late last year, and there were talks of bringing back director Andy Muschietti. There was also a little casting potential that was released. However, that seems to be confirmed, so I'll get to that in a second with the new names that are attached. So, like I mentioned, that all changed this week. It was announced that not only the sequel will start filming this year, but that Andy Muschietti will come back to direct, and some casting updates. So first, IndieWire broke the news that It Chapter 2 will start filming this summer. It will start filming this summer in Toronto, with the script reportedly being, quote, finalized and locations are currently being scouted and anticipating of shooting. Again, IndieWire said that Andy Muschietti will return to the director's chair, with his sister Barbara Muschietti also coming back to produce the movie with him. We can also assume that the young cast will return for some flashback scenes, and it was already confirmed that Bill Skarsgård will return to play Pennywise, the dancing clown. But the update that came out for the cast was reported by The Hollywood Reporter, and they reported that James McAvoy and Bill Hader are in talks to join the film. Now, if they sign on, Hader would play the adult Richie, who was played by Finn Wolfhard, the kid from Stranger Things, in part 1. And not only that, Hader has been fan casted by a lot of people online, so it would be a nice little full circle and dream come true for fans if Bill Hader ends up signing for the role. As for McAvoy, he would play the adult Bill, who was played by Jane Lieberher in the first movie. He's the kind of the pseudo kind of leader of the losers, the one with the stutter, of course the bigger brother of the little kid who got eaten by Pennywise at the beginning of the movie, whose name for some reason I can't remember. But yeah, that's a huge massive get. Now the update to the little casting announcement that I talked about earlier in the story was that Jessica Chastain, who we talked about here on the podcast, she was in negotiations earlier this year to play the adult role of Beverly, who was played greatly by Sophia Lillis in the first movie. Apparently, according to the Hollywood Reporter, she has officially signed on. So Jessica Chastain is officially the first new cast member to play the adult kids, which is kind of cool. And it will be a reunion all around for the cast. Now, Jessica Chastain has worked with Andy Muschietti on his first feature film, Mama, and Chastain, Hader, and McAvoy have all worked together on a film called The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, which came out in 2013. So it's just a big old reunion for everyone. Now, Hader currently stars in the new hit HBO show Barry, which is getting some really good reviews. I have them in my DVR, I haven't watched them yet, but it's already been renewed for a season 2, so he's going to be doing that. McAvoy recently finished filming the sequel to Split, which is Glass, and he'll be doing some reshoots for X-Men Dark Phoenix. Coincidentally, Jessica Chastain stars in X-Men Dark Phoenix, so she's going through that as well. So the sequel will see, of course, the Losers Club returning to Derry to battle Pennywise one last time. Now, It Chapter 2 does currently have a release date of September 6, 2019. This is pretty damn cool. This is a really great cast of adults they've gotten so far. Obviously, Jessica Chastain is good in pretty much everything she does. You got James McAvoy, who is, again, great in everything he does, and Bill Hader, who is kind of stepping a little bit away from comedy. I mean, everyone kind of just sees him as the comedy guy, but he has done some dramatic work in the past. Very little, but he has done stuff in the past. Again, I haven't seen Barry, but I feel it looks like he's playing a hitman in the movie or in the show. So I'm pretty sure that's gonna get a little more serious. He has done the Skeleton Key, which I think that was one of the first real things where people saw Bill Hader as a more dramatic actor, not just a comedic actor. So there is that as well. But I'm really excited. Again, I liked the new adaptation of It. I know it was very divisive. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people liked the TV movie version of it. I personally liked this new version better than the TV movie, but I'm going to save my opinion because obviously the TV movie was different than this one because it was all the adults and it was still through flashbacks of the kids, and it was 2 parts, and this one's going to be 2 parts as well. So hopefully it will be just as good as the first one, and hopefully fans who were fans of the first one will be fans of the second one. I'm going to hold my opinion to say which one is better once both parts come out. Personally, though, I liked this one better than the TV movie overall. So I don't know what that says about me, but I prefer that, so that's just my opinion. Again, I don't know if I'll get some flack for that, but if I do, that's okay. But yeah, that's the big movie news item of the week for me, anyway. So there you go. And now let's move on to our big movie news item of the week. And it's a movie news item for a movie that I was not really excited for. And then this cast started coming together, and I'm like, holy shit, no, this is a movie I'm excited for now. So our big movie news item of the week this week, of course, at least at the time of this recording, is that Disney's live-action Mulan movie is starting to put its cast together. Disney is going full speed on casting their live-action adaptation of Mulan. They already have Louis Lai-Fei, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She's also known as Crystal Liu. I think that's... I don't know why she is known as 2 different names, but we're going to go with Louis Lai-Fei. I think I already mispronounced it. Let's go with Lai-Fei, because that's her last name. So she has already been cast as Mulan herself. This was way back last year. And the movie will be directed by Nikki Caro, who has directed Well Rider. She's also directed McFarlane USA, and most recently she's directed The Zookeeper's Wife. And she will be directing off the latest script, which was done by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, who have written the scripts for Rise of the Planet of the Apes. That was the very first one, or not the very first one, but the first one in the new trilogy that was released. And they also wrote, they had a hand in writing Jurassic World as well. So that's who we already have for the movie. So who did they cast? Well, they just went off and casted some of the biggest names in China to be in the movie. First of all, it started with they casted Donnie Yen. I'm a huge fan of Donnie Yen, and that immediately caught my interest. I was just that just got me right away. So Donnie Yen will play Commander Tung, who is described as a mentor and a teacher to Mulan. And, of course, Donnie Yen already worked with Disney through Lucasfilm in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And of course, Yen is a massive draw in China. Along with Li Fei, they've actually worked together on Ip Man 2, or Ip Man 3, I should say. They worked together on Ip Man 3, so they already have a working relationship there, which is really nice and really cool. So he's there. Jet Li is in final talks to play the Emperor of China in the movie, which would mean his role is probably small unless they get him for a bigger role or something like that. There are some changes already, because I'm going to prepare you for that. There are some changes they're already making, especially with the villain, because they have casted Gong Li to play the villain in the movie, and she will apparently be playing a powerful witch. So the villain of the movie is not going to be Shang Yu, who of course was the leader of the Han army that was coming. I guess they're going more the supernatural route and dealing with a powerful witch, which is played by Gong Li. And American audiences will probably recognize her from Memoirs of a Geisha. She wasn't the main character, but she was in that movie. She was also in Hannibal Rising. I think she was the female lead in that. She was also in Miami Vice, Hannibal Rising and Miami Vice were not very good, but Memoirs of a Geisha was pretty alright, from what I can remember, because I haven't seen that movie in a while, and I actually don't remember too much about that movie, so I probably had to go back and watch that. But anyway, she's been in there, but she's a massive draw in China as well. She's done a lot of her work over there instead of over here. They've also cast, I should say, Chinese Vietnamese actress from New Zealand named Xana Tang, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She's done a lot of New Zealand TV series over there, like Filthy Rich and The Letdown, if you're into New Zealand TV series. She will play Mulan's sister in the movie, which is another original character for the live-action movie. So they're changing a lot of stuff, and it was announced previously, it was reported previously that the movie would change a lot of things from the animated movie and bring some things from the original ballad of Mulan and the history of the character Mulan and draw on that as opposed to the animated movie. Obviously, they're doing that. They changed the villain. We have Mulan apparently has a sister now for the movie. And I don't know too much about the original Mulan story, so I don't know if she actually had a sister originally and they took her away from the animated movie. I don't know. But regardless of that, they're changing some stuff, obviously. And there was talks about there not being as many musical numbers in the movie, and we don't know how that's going to work out, so we'll just have to wait and see on that. For those of you who are not familiar with Mulan, if you had not seen the original animated version, which first of all, shame on you.
Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Mulan is about a woman who disguises herself as a man in order to take the place of her elderly father from joining the military when the men in China are called upon by the emperor because China comes under attack. And in the animated movie, it was because the Huns were coming, and obviously it looks like that's going to be changing unless they end up casting someone for Shang Yu, and the witch is just like working with them, and she ends up becoming the actual like villain, and then Shang Yu's kind of like a secondary antagonist. We don't know if that's the case, but hopefully that's the case. Maybe, hopefully, please. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm all for the changes if the changes are good and they're great, and it actually serves the story of what they're trying to tell for this movie, because obviously the animated movie is the animated movie and this one's going to be the live action movie, so there's bound for things to change, and that's fine, although I'm sure many people will probably be upset about that. I have not read the reaction of what people thought about the villain change, because I'm trying to stay away from it, but I'm all for it. If it means we get a good movie. So this cast is ridiculous just right off the bat. You got Donnie Yen, and again, I was not very excited about this movie. I was very just tempered about it. I was like, okay, yeah, they were doing a lot of the animated movies, that's fine. Oh, they were doing Mulan, okay, fine, whatever. If the cast is good, it looks good, then I'll go watch it. You drop Donnie Yen in this movie. You drop Jet Li in this movie, even though he's just playing the Emperor. That's pretty damn cool. So I'm all for it if you got Donnie Yen and Jet Li. Although, if you got Donnie Yen on your side, I mean, you could probably take care of he can probably just do it himself. But obviously, the movie's called Mulan, so that's fine. I'll let it pass this once. So I'm excited for it. With these recent castings, I'm all for it. The changes are going to be very interesting. The changes are going to be, Mulan has a sister. They changed the villain from Shang Yu, the big intimidating man force, to a witch, which is fine. I mean, obviously they're giving more women bigger roles like this, which is great. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how they turn that around. So I'm all for it. Production will start this August. They will start filming this year in New Zealand and China. And with the casting going around, we'll probably get a little bit more casting updates in the future. Mulan will open on March 27th, 2020. So we got some time, but so far I'm pretty excited for this one. I'm not gonna lie. I went from to I'm gonna go watch this movie. Alright, so that's all the movie news items that have come out this week. Obviously, if anything big drops, you can go to the Facebook page, or we'll talk about them next week if they're big and noteworthy, as we like to do here on the podcast. So let's move on, as we always do, to this week's movie releases.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Alright, so we have an expansion release coming out this week, which is Isle of Dogs, which is the new Wes Anderson movie. It came out a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, I should say. Yeah, a few weeks ago, something like that. In a limited release, and now it's getting an expansion release this week. I actually watched Isle of Dogs earlier this week, and I loved it. I really dug it. It's a Wes Anderson movie. It's a stop motion animated movie. If you saw Fantastic Mr. Fox, and if you haven't seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, I highly recommend you do, because I love that movie, and I think you will too. But if you saw Fantastic Mr. Fox, you kind of get a little bit of that here with Isle of Dogs. It's got a great voice cast: Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Greta Gerwig. Who else is in there? You got Jeff Goldblum in there. It's just a great voice cast, and it's really well done. So if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you go do. It's a very good movie. Again, it's expansion release. I don't know how big the expansion is. I didn't put the number down, but if you get a chance to go watch it, I highly recommend you do. So that's the expansion release this week. We do have one limited release this week to talk about, a noteworthy one, which is Beirut. It is about a U.S. diplomat played by John Hamm who flees Lebanon in 1972 after a tragic incident at his home. 10 years later, he is called back to a war-torn Beirut by a CIA operative played by Rosamund Pike to negotiate for the life of a friend he left behind. So it doesn't look too bad, but it's written by Tony Gilroy, who has done a few good stuff. He's written a couple of the Bourne movies, so it looks pretty good. I know it's been getting some mixed reviews, kind of leaning a little bit more toward the negative side of things, but it doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's not something I'm jumping, jumping to go watch immediately, but it doesn't look too bad. So there it is. And again, it's a limited release, so if you don't get a chance to watch it, I don't think you're probably missing much, since they didn't bother to get a wide release. So let's move on to this week's wide releases. We have quite a few, actually, and even though some of these are wide releases, I think they're getting a low theater count, so just be aware of that. The first one is an animated movie called Sergeant Stubby, An American Hero. It is a true story of the most decorated dog in American military history, named Sergeant Stubby, and the enduring bonds he's forged with his brothers in arms in the trenches of World War I. So this is a true story. It's an animated true story about this again, military dog who is a very decorated military dog. I don't know the story about Sergeant Stubby, and I didn't even know this movie was coming out until I started checking the release schedules. So this is I've seen. I don't think I finished watching the whole trailer, but I saw most of the trailer. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, the animation is kind of odd, so it is coming from it's not coming from a big animation house, so there is that. But I don't know. I mean, I guess if you want to go watch an animated movie and teach your kids something about history, I think it's kind of cool. So there is that. So the next wide release, again, wide for these two being being in quotation marks, Borg versus McEnroe, the story of the 1980s tennis rivalry between the placid Bjorn Borg and the volatile John McEnroe, who is played by Shia LaBeouf in this movie. So there you go. I knew this movie was out. I did not see the trailer for this. I meant to watch the trailer before I started recording the podcast, and I didn't. And but I think Shia LaBeouf in this movie, I've seen a few stills and stuff like that. Doesn't look too bad, I guess, from the stills. I don't know. Yeah. Should do a better job of that, but I didn't do a better job of that, so I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But let's arguably, for argument's sake, the two real wide releases this week are the first one is Truth or Dare, which is from Blumhouse, which has a very great track record for horror movies. A harmless game of truth or dare among friends turns deadly when someone or something begins to punish those who tell a lie or refuse the dare. So let's be honest, it's a movie about a game we all played at parties when we were younger, and that sounds kind of dumb, but Blumhouse, at this point we shouldn't doubt Blumhouse because they have been very, very good at releasing movies. I had my doubts about Happy Death Day, and I went to go watch it, and I didn't hate it. So there's that. I don't know how I'm going to feel about Truth or Dare. It's the reviews have not been kind to it. So there's that. The movie stars Lucy Hale, Taylor Posey, Violet Bean, and Hayden Setuo. I didn't say pronounce his name. If I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, because I actually think he's kind of good. I think he's a big up-and-coming actor if he gets some good roles. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, the trailers haven't really got me excited. The whole when you get to know who's like being controlled by whatever it is that's controlling the game, when they make the smiley face, it kind of threw me off at first. I didn't find it scary. I found it kind of like, why are they doing? Why would you? Why is that your decision? Why is that your go-to to make that? I don't know. Just it seemed kind of weird. And I have a feeling that shot of Lucy Hale, which, by the way, if you're trying to place her name, she was in. I never watched it, but I knew she was in it. Pretty Little Liars. She was in that. She was also in. What was she in recently that I just? So she's in a CW show. I've seen her on the CW. Was it Life Sentence or something like that? I only know because I watched the CW superhero shows like the Flash and Arrow and stuff like that. So I see her a lot in the commercial breaks. But yeah, I like that shot of her when she says "Truth or Dare." I have a feeling that's probably the end of the movie, and I that's really kind of dumb if they give away the end of the movie in the trailers. But I mean, it is Truth or Dare, so I mean, there's that. I'm gonna go watch it. I'm sitting here like, I'm not gonna go watch it. No, I'm gonna go watch it. But not too excited about it. I'll tell you the movie I am excited to go watch: Rampage. Based, of course, off the classic 1980s video game Primatologist, I think that's how you say it. Davis Okoye, played by, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, shares an unbreakable bond with George, an intelligent silverback gorilla that has been in his care since birth. When a rogue genetic experiment goes wrong, it causes George, a wolf, and a reptile to grow to a monstrous size. As the mutated beasts embark on a path of destruction, Okoye teams up with a discredited genetic engineer, played by Naomi Harris, and the military to secure an antidote and prevent global catastrophe. I mean, let's face it, it's giant animals beating the crap out of each other. We're gonna go watch it. I'm gonna go watch it. I already bought my tickets to go watch it. So, and it's The Rock. I mean, what else do you want? The Rock is like the modern day action hero that we all know and care about, that we all want to go see because he's The Rock. I mean, come on. And you got giant animals, beating the crap out of each other. And again, and for me, being living like a half hour out from the city here in Chicago where they filmed some of it, and it looks like they're going to destroy, I'm okay with that. I like seeing Chicago be destroyed in movies sometimes. Not all the time, because I'm like, come on guys, stop picking on us. But most of the time I like seeing it. So I bought my tickets. I'm going to go watch it. It's The Rock. It's Rampage. It's just going to be a dumb fun action movie. I mean, if you're going to be sitting there like, oh, like the acting should be better. No, shut up. It's Rampage. Shut your mouth. Get out of here. So the rest of the movie, I don't know why I'm so angry. The rest of the movie stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Joe Manganiello, Marley. I can't speak. Marley Sheraton, Jack Quaid, PJ Byrne, and Malin Ackerman. So there you go. You got those. You got all those in there. So once again, your wide releases are Rampage, Truth or Dare, Borg versus Makarov, Sergeant Stubby, and American Hero, Beirut, and your expansion release is Isle of Dogs. A sneak peek for next week, we have a thriller about a getaway gone wrong, the new Amy Schumer movie, and a very long-awaited sequel that was crowdfunded. So that's your sneak peek for next week. And that's all I got for you guys this week on the podcast. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. This was, of course, the Movie Pit. No matter where you're listening to this, whether you're listening to this on SoundCloud, whether you're listening to this on YouTube, or whether you're listening to this on iTunes, because we are on iTunes. You can go search the Movie Pit Podcast on iTunes, or you can just click the link down below in the description/show notes area, unless you're listening on iTunes, which that would be kind of defeat the purpose. But if you're listening to this on YouTube or SoundCloud, go click on that link. Go subscribe on iTunes. Leave me a rating and review. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out the podcast in the long run. And also, I'll give you guys a shout out here on the podcast for that, because then your name will be all over the internet. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys for this week. Go check out all the other links down below in the description/show notes area. The trailers are all down there. The Facebook page is down there, facebook.com/moviepit, where I run down all the movie news for the week. Basically gives you an early preview of what we're going to talk about on the podcast. However, I go more into detail on the podcast than I do on the Facebook page. So if you want to hear more of my opinions, you'll have to listen to the podcast. Also, while you're down there, there's what else is down there? The WordPress account, where I do my spoiler-free written reviews. Like I mentioned, there is a Quiet Place spoiler-free review up there right now. There will be a review for Truth or Dare and Rampage up this weekend, if not early next week, because I'm watching Rampage on Saturday and I'm watching Truth or Dare on Sunday. So I got a little there's gonna be a little bit of time difference there and all that stuff. So and date differences obviously, and when I get to come home and when I how much I get done. So there will be reviews up there for those two movies up on the WordPress account, and of course I always link them to the Facebook page as well. We do have a Twitter page, which I am slowly getting more active on, which is Movie Pit Podcast. That's Movie Pit It's at Movie Pit Podcast. That's at Movie Pit Podcast. No spaces. The M in movie, the P in pit, and the P in podcast are all capitalized, if that helps you out. It's also just the logo of the podcast as well. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys this week. Thank you guys so much for joining me in the podcast this week. And anything else that's down below in the description/show notes area is worth checking out as well. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me in the podcast this week. Let me know what your favorite part of the podcast was. What movie news item is your favorite? What trailer was your favorite? All that good stuff everywhere you can. And that's it. I'm going to stop rambling because I'm pretty sure I've said that's it. It's all I got for you guys like 5 times now. We start a drinking game. Actually, no, don't do that because that's probably bad for your health how many times I do that. And then I'll be aware of that. And then I'll probably just keep saying it and saying it and saying it and then just get you really drunk. So that's it. That's it. I almost said it. I caught myself. I stopped myself from saying it. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Hopefully you're having a good weekend or a good week, depending on where you're listening to this podcast. And yeah, as always, be safe. Have a good one. Take care of yourself. Be good people. And as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop, whoop, yeah! Give it up! Movies!